Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are super excited to kick off this new series called Demystifying Transparency Data Creation and Management, Humans, APIs, and AI. Today, in the first part of our series, we have Michaela DeRusso from EC3, who we have been partners with, EC3, since 2019, since it really was in its inception. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And today we're going to go deep and look at behind the scenes how data gets created and managed. And so that's the premise of this series. With the demand for decarbonization and better material selection capabilities, data workflow and tools need to improve rapidly. And so we often get asked, where do you get your data from? How does the data get into the transparency catalog? How frequently is it updated? Are all the manufacturers participating? And the thing for you designers who are there with us today on the webinar, you know how hard it is to design something that looks simple. And we felt that now would be a good time to start sharing with people how collecting, organizing, aggregating, and synthesizing data to make the presentation simple is really anything but. So that's what this series is about. We're going to go deep. It's going to be very nerdy. But I think if you've registered, you're probably a nerd. And so you'll be looking forward to what we have to share today. This webinar is getting recorded. You will automatically get a link to the recording in the next day or two. If you want to request the deck, you'll be able to do that as well. If you have questions over the course of the webinar, please use the questions panel to put them in. We'll try to get to those questions at the end. Any question not answered, you will be followed up either by Michaela or us here at Sustainable Minds. And so don't worry about scribbling notes and will you get this information later? You'll get it all later. And yes, we want to answer any questions. On the way out, there's a set of questions we'd appreciate you answer for us. And also we're going to do a little poll during this webinar. So expect a tiny little bit of interactivity. So here's what today's session is going to look like. I'm going to start off, for those of you who are new to Sustainable Minds, giving you a little bit of an overview about who we are and what we do. And I'll give you the backstory on how we've been working with EC3 for all these 6 years. And then I'll show you kind of the aha moment that made us realize we've got to rethink and redo how we're managing data that we get from EC3. It's a perfect segue into Michaela talking about what's going on at EC3, her role, and what they're doing to manage this massive influx of EPDs to get the data processed, managed, and published. There's a pretty long list of categories waiting to be moved from draft and pilot to published. They can use industry help. She's going to talk about that. And then I'm going to come back and show you why this realization at the end of the year was so critical to make a change. And it's effectively because now with Project Builder and Library embedded into the transparency catalog, people are making and preserving decisions about products based on performance attributes to build out projects, templates, libraries. And so it's even more important that the data be understandable and accurate. And then I'll show you how we use the API, and then I'll show you what this new update looks like. And we are in the midst of rolling it out now. So for those of you unfamiliar with Sustainable Minds, I'm Terry Swack, and I'm the founder and CEO. Over time, and Over many years, we have evolved into becoming the only end-to-end product transparency solutions provider in the market today. We are a program operator. We publish product category rules. We published 9 last year. We've got 3 in production now. We create EPDs. We deliver LCA services as well as material ingredient assessment services. And we have innovative digital tools for manufacturers and building professionals, because this is all about driving change in the market to create all building to be high performance building. And so the tools and the strategies that we use are to help manufacturers better market their brands and products based on all the functional performance attributes, but also now the environmental and material health performance attributes, and for the building industry, building professionals, to be able to select brands and products based on all of those performance attributes that people use to make those decisions now. So this just visualizes what I just described. We are a program operator. We were the first to publish a 2-part PCR program for North America. That was back in 2014. So we've been doing this for over a decade. We were the first to actually create a digital EPD. We call ours a transparency report. It is literally an online marketing tool that integrates everything a manufacturer wants to convey to someone evaluating a product. It's not just the environmental information, it's all the information about the product, as well as what the manufacturer is doing to improve. And then this is all in service, creating these disclosures is all in service of making the manufacturer and the products and the disclosures be available in the transparency catalog, where people are coming day in and day out to find those brands in each master format, division, and section, investing in transparency. So to kick off kind of the geeky aspect of this webinar today, I'm going to talk about why better PCRs are needed, because that's at the whole top of the story, that we're not going to get good EPDs without creating better PCRs. So in the series that we did last year, which you may have seen the links to in the invitation, and I'll include those again, we did a 3-part series demystifying the PCR LCA EPD creation process. So this was one of the slides from that webinar. And, you know, same story, why are better PCRs needed? There's an increasing demand for EPDs that are cradle to grave. The EPA and the Inflation Reduction Act requirements for the low carbon rating system are requiring cradle to gate. Older PCRs tend to be just cradle to gate. So more PCRs are needed that are cradle to grave to keep pace with the demand. But at the end of the day, the EPDs that are getting created are no longer just for, you know, submitting with a lead application. For example, these EPDs are powering other tools where decisions are being made, relative decisions. And so the data in the EPDs has to be standardized and reliable. And so because EPDs are being used to make big decisions, it all starts with the PCRs, which means PCRs all need to be created the same way. So this is just really what the flow looks like. There's a load of international standards that drive the requirements behind the creation of PCRs, which provide the requirements for how the LCA gets done, which then provides the requirements for how the EPD gets done and published. And then EPDs are going into the transparency catalog, EC3, and other EPD databases, carbon calculators, whole building LCA tools. So, you know, it's all interconnected. And you're going to see, Michaela is going to speak to the problems that they encounter from EPDs not made with, you know, good PCRs. So back in August of 2023, Sustainable Minds became the very first program operator to update our technical program in conformance with the ACLCA PCR open standard, which we were also significantly involved with its creation. I actually co-chaired the working group for several years to get this standard created and published. So we are firmly committed to standardized and consistent PCRs and EPDs. So that brings me to talking about the transparency catalog. You can consider that kind of our flagship product. And last year we rolled out publicly the new application layer in the transparency catalog called Project Builder and Library. And our intent is to make low carbon and healthy material selection accessible to everyone on all project teams, whether people are knowledgeable about carbon intensity and material health or not. Everybody should be able to be engaged and involved in making better decisions in an understandable way. What's in the catalog today is several thousand manufacturers and industry organizations. It's all organized by master format because we knew that for products to get into a project, they generally have to get into the spec. And so we've built out the sections and divisions as product transparency disclosures get created. So we don't have any sections that are empty. They only get added to the selectors, the filters, when there's content there. And our data team, you're going to hear more about them, what they do day in and day out is they're going to all the EPD program operators who make EPDs for products available in North America and aggregating all of those EPDs. We organize them by product specific, industry average, and optimized. And we also get all the material ingredient disclosure data via API from leading programs like the Health Product Declaration, Declare, Living Product Challenge, Cradle to Cradle, and more. So we've got data coming in monthly, weekly, from many different sources in many different formats. And it's what our data team does day in and day out, is gather it, synthesize it, structure it, and publish it into the transparency catalog. But we have an added layer of intent, which is that it's one thing to add a link to a Declare label or add a link to an HPD. It's another thing to make the information being reported or disclosed in those documents understandable and available right in a selection environment, so you don't actually have to go into the disclosure itself and read it and assess what the results are. And so that's our goal with all of our data partners to support this larger goal of making low carbon healthy material selection accessible to all project team members. So it's our intent to make information easy to use, not just easy to find. And that's what this relationship with EC3 has always been about. So going back to 2019, I was at a conference where I heard Stacy Smedley, the executive director of Building Transparency, give a talk about what they were working on. And at the time, Stacy was still with Skanska, or she was part-time. She was heading out to work on Building Transparency or the EC3 tool. There wasn't Building Transparency yet. And I was fascinated because as a program operator in the world of LCAs and EPDs, EPDs aren't comparable. Even though everybody wants to be able to compare EPDs, they're not comparable. And so when I learned about what the EC3 tool was trying to do by creating industry or categories, product categories based on calculating the embodied carbon reported in the EPD and calculating an industry range for a product category, so that's brilliant. Whether or not the methodology is something that's accepted, it was something that was new. I felt like this is exactly what the industry really needed, was a new approach to being able to take data and make it useful. The tool itself is very technical. If any of you guys have used EC3, there is a learning curve. And when people are doing material selection, really what they just want to know is how carbon intensive is this material, and how much better or worse is it than others in the category. And so we created this quintile approach literally by slicing up the industry range bar chart in the box plot, which Michaela will talk about, and just turning it into these comparative results. And to that end, the folks at EC3 built us a custom version of their API. So we've been getting this data created for us since we started this relationship. So now in a manufacturer's listing and in search results, we link to the EPD, which is the downloadable PDF. We tell you some information about it, its scope and regionality. And then we show the quintile result, the comparative result. So in this case, this is showing that this particular product's EPD is reporting that it's in the 40th percentile of lowest embodied carbon in that category. And you can click there and go right into the digital EPD in EC3. So this is a tooltip. It's kind of hefty. We've actually moved it in this new release. But you can see, if you're interested in moving into EC3, you can click the link and it's going to take you right into the digital EPD, where you can see the comparative box plot of the embodied carbon reported in that EPD compared to the industry range. So now that we have all of this embodied carbon data per EPD in the catalog, clearly was the next step was to build a filter so that people looking for low carbon materials could say, listen, I'm going to be looking at structural steel framing. I only want to look at the lowest embodied carbon options. So maybe I'll select the 20th and 40th percentile. And then that's all that I'll see, that the user will see, so that they are streamlining their search to just find materials that meet their selection criteria. And we've also done similar on the materials side, which will be another webinar. So I'm going to keep going with the EPD story. So next, now with Project Builder and Library, if the user selects any of these materials, or they select the materials that they want from the search results, they're going to click to say add products to a project. And now in Project Builder and Library, they are adding products to projects. And this is an example list of projects in our example library. People are building, one of the use cases is master format divisions or sections, where they're selecting bases of design as well as acceptable substitutions based on the performance criteria of environmental performance and material health, which that information is not available in any of the specification tools. So if in fact they're looking for low carbon and they're creating projects grouped by carbon intensity, then those results need to be accurate. This is what a project looks like. If I click into that project, now we're in the Bob's Big Building project, you can see that's the product I selected. It has EPDs, material disclosures, and here it is in the 20th percentile. So more about this later, but literally I've given you the whole end-to-end from creating a PCR, doing the LCA, creating the EPD, putting it in the catalog, and now people being able to select products and materials to build their own internal digital knowledge base with the underlying data being live. So it's always live and up to date. It's a big responsibility. But what we've learned this year is that practically everyone on ENR's top five green lists by sector uses the transparency catalogs. We're thrilled that we've been able to get that kind of traction. Every one of these firms that's highlighted in orange use the transparency catalog, as well as 75% of the top 50 in the top 100 design firms and the top 100 contractors list. And this is a new stat this year that 90% of the top 25 contractors on this list use the transparency catalog. So what that says to us is we've done not only a good job of getting the word out that the catalog is available, but that making it easy to use and accessible by many different kinds of people in these firms confirms that we've made the data understandable and useful and easy to use. So this was the aha moment. At the end of the year, we always publish stats about what happened in 2024. And so, we added new manufacturers to the catalog. We actually synthesized and actually merged some master format sections, retired some sections where disclosures had expired. Lots of people signing up for accounts to learn about Project Builder and Library and have a little bit more data accessibility in the catalog. But this was the stat that was really important. And this is, the kickoff to the next part of the webinar, which is that we have a lot of products now with EPDs, and we don't include the specific mix generated EPDs for concrete and asphalt. And that's largely because those EPDs are specific to projects. They don't really help people select a product or a manufacturer for a job now. And so we link to the program operator site for those EPDs, but we don't include each individual one. So that's why the number is more like 8,000 rather than 120,000. You'll see Michaela's numbers. But this was really important. Over 4,000 of these products now have quintiles. And so when we looked at last year's numbers, a big increase in EPDs, but an even bigger increase in the number of quintiles. And so we said, we got to look into that, because that's awesome that many more materials can be found in the embodied carbon selection filter. But what became increasingly more obvious in the last some number of months, as we have worked with manufacturers to onboard their product information into the catalog, is that we were finding that the quintiles for certain categories didn't really make sense. And so when we really dug in, what we discovered was that the API, when we pull the data from EC3, pulls all the data for all of the EPDs in EC3, including data that really isn't ready for prime time in draft categories, in pilot categories. And so we made the decision that we are going to back out some of the quintile data associated with pilot categories so that only published categories will have the comparative result. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Michaela, and she is going to do a deep dive on how they do that over at EC3. And then I'm going to come back and wrap it up and show you how we're actually changing the interface in the transparency catalog, which is in process right now. So Michaela, over to you. I'm making you the presenter.
Great. Okay. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. And then, are you seeing the screen yet?
We are.
Great. Okay. Just give me one moment. I think that's working. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, thanks for having me. Yeah, this is really exciting stuff, and enjoy having all of these different digital EPD players to work with. But yeah, my name's Michaela DeRousseau. I'm the data and methodology manager with Building Transparency. And a significant part of my work is actually doing category development for the EC3 tool. And so I'll today be kind of pulling back the curtain on the EC3 tool and what that work looks like exactly, and basically explain how we develop and advance the publishing of new categories in our EPD database. Let's see if I can, so that hopefully that advanced slide. Yeah, so just to give you a little more background, so Building Transparency is a nonprofit, and we own and operate the EC3 tool. and our mission is really to provide the open access data and tools that are needed for reducing embodied carbon in construction. And we really wouldn't be able to provide and share all of this data for free to the public if it wasn't for the support of our sponsors and partners. And so I'm just listing some of the folks that partner with us here from all kind of sides of the AEC community. So just want to step back and explain kind of at its core, EC3, the Embodied Carbon in Construction Calculator, is a database of environmental product declarations for construction products. And if you're thinking about kind of how all the entities in this space work together related to EPDs, you can think of us as aiming to be the fundamental aggregator of EPDs for construction. And so our EC3 database, combined with other kind of key functionalities that we also have plan and compare buildings functionality, for example. But all these functions combined allow folks in the AEC space to estimate embodied carbon of their projects and find lower carbon material options. And so this, I just want to start with some statistics for you. Gives a sense of kind of the scale of work that EC3 is doing and our growth over the years. Currently, we have almost 160,000 valid EPDs in our database, coming from 2,600 companies and 5,400 plants. And so you can see here that we have 96 public categories, 157 pilot categories, and 35 draft categories. And I'll talk a little bit more what the actual meaning there of those is, but in a second. But the charts on the right show kind of geographical and time scopes of our coverage. So you can see we have the most coverage in North America, but we're significantly capturing EPDs as they're adopted in Europe, South America, Asia, Africa, etc. And you can also see in the bottom section here our growth over time since our launch around 5 years ago. So we're really kind of ramping up. Well, the whole space is really ramping up in terms of the number of EPDs that are out there. Just want to provide some additional breakdown. So I included that we have specific to a couple kind of critical categories, especially for policy. We have over 120,000 ready mix EPDs in the database, 4,400 asphalt EPDs as well. And these are, some of the types of materials that have EPD generators. So production of EPDs for the very wide variety of mix designs that exist is possible and are being stored in the database. And this is kind of something we're aiming to get to in a lot of other critical categories that have a lot of customization in them, where we might see a lot of products. Just to highlight some of our user statistics, we have over 50,000 users in the database, and from over 5,000 different companies. You can also see that we have quite a few different professions that use our tool. So, some of the largest professions being architecture, construction, civil and structural engineering, and sustainability consultants as well. And I kind of wanted to provide a little insight into what the EC3 database of EPDs looks like when you're searching our find and compare materials functionality, just to give you a sense of like, what are we talking about with category development? So under find and compare materials, you arrive at this category tree, and you can either click this search category space at the top and start typing a category that you're interested in looking at, or you can use the tree which is organized by master format, to kind of drill down into seeing what subcategories exist. And so you can see here in the example that I opened up the little plus button, which under concrete, and it showed all of these subcategories that are housed under there. And so we could go to the ready mix category, we could and see the EPDs there, but you can see that I've selected cement. And if you click, EPDs, the little red button, then what you're brought to is this really critical performance search page. And it's different for every product category in the database, with the goal that when the goal is that when folks are trying to find products in our database, they may need to provide functional or performance or even geographical information in order to find EPDs that are applicable to their use case, and even kind of to suggest any kind of comparability being possible. So we want to facilitate users to be able to find EPDs that are functionally similar, and we can get to those apples to apples comparisons. So you can see that I selected the cement category and I was brought to this search page. And what this search page actually includes is a lot of expertise and kind of performance and standards information that is specific to that material. So, there's an ASTM, there are several ASTM standards relating to the type of cement in this kind of product category. So what we've essentially gotten is expertise from cement producers and the industry in order to kind of populate how might someone using this tool need to search for the type of materials they're interested in. You can see in this example, we facilitate the user to find what materials they're looking for. So you can see in this example that I've selected, a type 1-2 cement per ASTM C150. And I've also entered a geography that I'm interested in. So I just if I clicked in the geography button, I can select USA. And when I click the search button on the bottom right, that essentially will bring up all of the EPDs that follow the search filters that I've entered. So it ends up looking like this, where you get a listing of all the EPDs and you get a summary at the very top there that says product EPDs. There are 34 that matched my search. Industry EPDs, there was 1. So a summary of the statistics as well. And so then below that is the listing of all the EPDs that were found. We show 25 per page. And if you've gotten to that place where, we really encourage functional comparisons only. And so if you've kind of used some of these filters to find products that are applicable to a use case, we actually allow you to click this button that says compare. It'll say compare, and then you can actually select several materials to take a look at the GWP on a functional comparison basis. So what it actually ends up looking like is you see each EPD result that you clicked on compared to the actual search that you made. So you compare to the range that's out there. I also just want to mention that since we're a digitized database of EPDs, we actually have the ability to, if you clicked on, for example, this open button, any of these EPDs, you click on open and you're brought to the single digitized EPD page in EC3. And so this is just basically where we've captured all of this information digitally for you. Instead, we also have the PDF documents, but so you can see in a very standard format, we've got the product name, date of issue, expiry date of the EPD, product description, all of the performance information we were able to glean from the EPD, as well as the embodied carbon impact. So those are some of the things. That's not all the information, but I'll just stop there on the digitized EPD. And then just lastly, I wanted to show what we mean by there's this box plot that appears for your search on the side. And if I just go back to zooming in on it, I just wanted to kind of say for everyone what that means. It essentially illustrates the range of GWP that is applicable to your search. So the minimum and the maximum represent the GWP values of the min and max that was found for your search. The box here shows where basically the majority of products are found for your search. So it's the 20th percentile is here, and the 80th percentile is at the top. So the bulk of the products are actually between the box there. And the EC3 baseline, with the purple line, is our suggestion from Building Transparency of a feasible goal to try to be underneath for that category. And it represents the 20th percentile, the GWP from the 20th percentile product multiplied by 1.2. So it's just slightly more achievable than the 20th percentile. I want to take a little time to clarify for folks, how are we getting EPDs in the database? And that can be really important. And so the answer is, it depends. So our top priority and best way to receive EPDs is digitally, where actually folks like Sustainable Minds are adopting digital publishing formats and directly digitally sending EPD information to us. And it's the most seamless and low error rate method of getting EPD data transferred. And so that's definitely our kind of priority top pick method. But from the get-go, we have received published EPDs that are in PDF format. So, EPDs are public documents per the ISO standards. And so EC3 scrapes EPD publisher websites, and it's often just sent them as well. And we parse that data into a digital format ourselves, and that allows us to kind of, in a standard way, present that information to everyone. And we also, with that parsing of the PDF documents, determine what category the EPD likely represents. So, we get an EPD uploaded to the system, and our parser says, oh, based on the PCR that's reported on this EPD and some other information, certain keywords, this looks like it's a window EPD, and we put it in the window category. And so one really exciting thing that I wanted to mention is that we've been updating our parser scripts to implement AI, which is proving to be really accurate and successful for this EPD parsing process. So that's just an exciting update to share. And then I just want to kind of dive into how we develop categories for EC3. Where did we start? 5 years ago, the kind of most important thing was to start with the highest GWP contributors to construction, the ones that are both high intensity of GWP and also very large quantities being used. So, things like concrete, rebar, wood products, structural steel. Those were kind of the categories we started with, but it turns out there's a lot of stuff that goes into buildings and construction. And so we've gotten already to this point where we have over 200 distinct categories in EC3 within several stages of development. This little screenshot down here just shows the kind of layering of this category tree we have, that it's actually often several subcategories deep. It's just a complex space out there. And the way that we move, our goal here is to get EPDs into public categories so that everyone, it's a free database for the public so that everyone is able to see and use EPDs from the construction sector. And the way we do this is with a tiered permission structure. And so I'll just kind of walk through these 3 different category statuses. So a public category means all users can see and use the category. We typically allow EPD comparisons, and we really enable that and encourage users to search by their application and performance attributes so that they can do apples to apples comparisons. But this is all allowed in public categories. And kind of one layer deeper of like what is required to move a category to public, we require that we've had some kind of SME expertise related to manufacturers of that product to inform the performance search specs that I showed. We also require that internally we've done a review of the existing EPDs and PCRs that exist for that category. We've reviewed them and even potentially done some of that work with manufacturers to say, okay, what EPDs are out there? Are we categorizing them accurately by looking at, okay, EPDs are being parsed into this category. Did we do it right? Let's do a bunch of manual checks. And then also to say, have we, have we basically collected all the types of information that the PCR requires to be reported on EPDs? So it's a more intense level of or status for this category, the kind of scrutiny we require. But to talk about pilot categories, this is like one layer back. And the way that we kind of move things forward is that, categories that are in pilot, only our pilot users and EC3 partners can see and use this category. And we basically the meaning is this category is in a beta stage. And we encourage our pilot users to provide feedback to us. In terms of category and quality, that means that we've done an internal review of EPDs and PCRs, like the public category, but it's potentially that just building transparency has developed the performance specs, and we still need, that SME expertise. And we may have, improved category accuracy of the categorization of EPDs, but it may also need some more feedback and more attention. And then I'll just highlight draft category is really only visible to building transparency and data curator users. There's really only a few of those. And so it's not super externally facing, but it's essentially what we'll call like a holding category that we would like to move to pilot or public, but we need a place in the interim to put those EPDs. So that means we haven't had expertise providing feedback to us. We may not have high accuracy in categorization, and there may not even be, a lot of these categories have no performance specifications, so we wouldn't feel comfortable making comparisons on them. And so the goal here is to really get all products, the product categories that are important here to go to be at least starting to move to public, especially the ones that are used a lot. There's a lot of EPDs for and that are GWP intensive. And so since our goal is to always provide the public with free access to our data, we rely on partnership support for the development and advancement of these categories from industry and manufacturers. And so this allows us to move categories from up the stages here. Just want to highlight really quickly what partnership with us looks like. We typically have around bi-weekly meetings, but that's flexible depending on what kind of attention the category needs. We expect an SME that's just basically not knowledgeable about the product, any kind of standards, ASTM standards or different specifications that are associated with the product to help us refine those performance filters, put in any comparison wordings if we need to, and potentially participate on reviewing or notifying us of, hey, look, there's two different PCRs, and there's this bunch of EPDs coming in for this category. And we really want feedback, during this partnership to ensure that data categorization accuracy is high. And so after kind of working with folks and having these meetings, we develop the performance filters, we implement it in the tool, then we're able to move the category to public. And that's kind of the main goal there, is advancing these categories enough to be public, to be used for free. Our manufacturer partnerships are $25K a year, but there's other possibilities there if there's kind of multiple manufacturers, as long as we avoid any antitrust stuff. We're able to be flexible there. A couple additional benefits are you get your logo on our sponsor pages. We do LinkedIn announcements on public category status. being announced. I think I want to. We don't have a ton of time left, and I want to make sure that Terry gets a little time left. And so I just wanted to say that, to clarify on what that actual partnership work looks like, we work in tandem to ensure that we go from, potentially, if it's a draft category, we may not have any of these performance specifications on how someone may want to search for EPDs in the database. And so we work with manufacturers to make sure that this spec page is up to par and represents any performance and standards that are being reported on EPDs. I want to kind of open it up for this. We're going to do a poll really fast because we get a lot of feedback from both manufacturers and, on the design side of saying, hey, looks like you don't have a public category for this. We'd love to see, we know there's EPDs out there. And so this is a list of pilot or draft categories that have either been requested of us or that Building Transparency knows is a data quality priority for us because a bunch of EPDs exist, but maybe we haven't had the funding or time to really kind of be able to move this existing category to public, knowing that there are data quality issues with it. So I'll let Amber share screen here really fast. Let me just my sharing. I'm sharing.
So we're going to do the poll in two parts. You'll see there's 4 on each poll, and just select 2, and this will help Building Transparency prioritize this next group of categories to work on.
Can you, am I showing my screen? I'm a little not sure.
The poll is showing.
Okay, good. I can't see it, but I'll trust.
Amber, do you want to go to the next one?
Oh, I see it now. This is just going to help inform kind of where we focus, and we'd love, we're loving to have designer and manufacturer feedback get directly to us.
It looks like people are still voting. I'll give you another few seconds. Okay. All right, thanks everyone. Actually, I think we can share the results. I wonder what happens if I click share results. Oh, there we go. Looks like the backing and underlayment category.
Okay. Getting some attention.
Right, and then I'm not sure how to. Yeah, I'm not sure how to show the results of the second one, but we'll let people know.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and wrap up, Michaela?
Yeah, that sounds good. So let me just, is my screen sharing again?
It is, yeah.
Okay, good. Just to wrap up, I was going to talk about comparisons in a couple categories. Do you want me to talk about that, Terry? Or should I skip over?
Yeah, just take a minute to go through it quickly because I understand it's going to possibly be remediated.
Yeah, I think we just have a few public categories in which I just want to kind of basically say that, referring to what Terry alluded to earlier, there may be a significant number of EPDs in the category. There are also, users who are requesting access to the product category, but there are some times where there are issues associated, kind of usually starting with the product category rules, in which EPDs produced from that PCR or multiple PCRs in that space, in that category, may not support apples to apples comparisons. And I'll just skip over this just a bit to say that this happens sometimes when multiple declared units are being are possible on EPDs from the same category, or when basically not enough performance information is reported on EPDs, and that is, that stems from the product category rules, in which we're basically never able to get to apples comparisons. And so we would say that high quality product category rules really kind of support a single uniform declared unit or functional unit and provide adequate performance information to distinguish products. And this is just kind of informational for everyone, especially if you ever participate on a product category rule. That's important. And so one example for us in which we have a public category to show to folks, hey, these EPDs exist, we want you to know that, but we have removed comparisons. A good example here is this is a screenshot from our paints and coatings category. You can't see it, it's a little covered here, but essentially we've seen issues where we really can't support folks just choosing, oh, look, this EPD has a lower GWP than this other one, and it makes it challenging. So we've actually elected to remove the box plot and remove the compare by buttons, but still show the EPD listings to show that they're out there. So I'll just leave it at that. High quality PCRs have a really tight, kind of clear scope. They suggest one uniform declared unit or functional unit for EPDs, and they include a lot of performance information where possible reported on the EPD. And so I'll pass that back to Terry. I just wanted to say that we would be, well, I'll drop my email in the chat. If there's manufacturers that, your product is not a public category in EC3, we would love to work with you, and you can feel free to reach out to chat more about what that could look like. So thanks a lot.
Well, thanks, Michaela. So now to just kind of bring all this home, picking up where we left off, of course it's important when people go to the catalog and they're making comparative searches and using the filters to find the stuff we need. But as I mentioned before, as people are building out their internal knowledge bases of materials, there's a longer shelf life for that data. So what Project Builder Library is a collaborative workflow solution seamlessly embedded in the transparency catalog. It allows people to build projects and libraries. And we also have a round trip back to EC3. So earlier, Michaela mentioned you can plan and compare building projects. When you set up a project in Project Builder, it will export directly into EC3 to automatically set up the building project with the products with EPDs you've already selected. So you don't have to use EC3 to find the lowest embodied carbon option. You're doing it in the catalog because we have that data, and you can move right on to planning and comparing buildings. So here's the, pulling back the curtain. Every user of an API configures the API data the way they need it, the way they want to use it. So this is an export, this is a spreadsheet export to show you the data that we use, that we've configured, that we pull from the API to present to you the data that we present in the catalog. So you can see there's a lot of stuff. There's the EC3 ID, there's the manufacturer name, the product name. So there's a lot we've learned along the way. So for example, we now pull this failed column because if the EPD is failed in EC3, it will often still display, but it breaks the export. So now we know we don't add in any, it breaks the back to EC3 export. Here's what's new. We're tracking categories, and now we pull whether the category is in pilot or it's in draft. So if it's false, that means the category is public. We pull obviously the creation dates, the validity period, the link in EC3, the master format number. And then if it's a public category, it's going to get the quintile result, 20, 30, 40, 50th. And so that's the shorthand for us of what category it's in. So now what we're doing is you'll see a new tooltip. This is live next to the EC3 link. That's going to take you back into EC3. But now you're going to start seeing fewer quintiles. And now you're going to see labels to identify the material category stage. So if the and here's the stages. So if the category is public, you'll see the quintile like that one. If the category is public, but the EPD shows to be in the 80th percentile, which simply means it's not even knowable. The EPD is so uncertain, it's not even knowable. When we work with a manufacturer to activate their listing, if they have any EPDs in the 80th percentile, we'll remove that and replace it with public high uncertainty, just because 80th percentile looks terrible and it's just not knowable. So that would be an option for manufacturer. This is the instance when the category is public, but there's no comparisons. For example, the paint category. So you'll still be able to click into EC3, but there will be no box plot, as Michaela pointed out. And we're simply saying it's public, but there's no comparisons. If it's a pilot category, it's going to say pilot category. So there's no quintile. It's not done. You can still click into EC3 to see it, but we're not publishing the comparative results yet. If it's in draft, you've just learned there's insufficient data. And finally, we don't want to be silent on any EPD. If the EPD is not in EC3 or it hasn't been categorized yet, then we'll add a label that simply says there's no category, and then there will be no link. So you will always be able to contact Building Transparency, particularly if products in your category, if you're a manufacturer, like, hey, I want this category to go public, you can contact them. If you're an architect, engineer, contractor, and you want to raise your hand on this category should get done, contact Building Transparency. So in Project Builder, this will all flow through. So now in draft or pilot categories, if there's no quintile, that will be replaced with the category label status and no longer showing a quintile from an unfinished category. So I leave you with, if you are a building professional, let us know if you're interested in evaluating Project Builder and Library to build an internal digital knowledge base. And manufacturers, we really encourage you, if you have EPDs or you have material disclosures, you already have a listing in the catalog. People are already finding your brand, they're already finding your products, they're your disclosures, but you don't have any product information, there's no contact information. Your products are only showing up in the master format section that we assign them. So we really encourage you to contact us. Let's talk about the benefits of activating your listing, because manufacturers with activated listings get 5 to 50 times more traction to their content than an unactivated listing. So it means activated listings, you're getting your products into projects and libraries. And later this year, we'll be building another dashboard application for manufacturers to be able to track the traction of their products into projects and libraries. So with that, we're right up against our time. We're a couple minutes over. Any questions that you provided, we will answer them. You'll get an email from the right person to answer them. And we want to thank you for attending today and spending the amount of time you have, which is considerable. And we hope you have a great day, and watch for our next Part 2 webinar in our Demystifying Transparency Data Creation and Management series. Thank you, Michaela. We love working with you guys, and we are going to continue to make this collaboration benefit everyone involved.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Same to you.
All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.